it's Kevin and this is my review for Searching. And what Searching is essentially about is we center on the Kim family, David and Margot, and David basically, he's living a normal life and everything, and one day his daughter Margot is in an all-night study session and he expects her to return home. However, he wakes up the next morning and not only is she not returned home, but she's left him like 2 voicemails, and as the day proceeds, he starts to realize that something might have happened to her, so he decides to take the opportunity to get into her laptop and get to the bottom of things and maybe solve the mystery of her disappearance. And along the way, he starts to realize that his daughter might not possibly be as perfect as he once thought she was, and that's really all I'm going to say. So Searching overall, I was very intrigued by this movie, not just because of the setting, which, we've seen done before in, like, Unfriended and things like that, but the plot in general seemed very riveting. Again, this is stuff that we have seen before, but it looked very well acted. It looked like it was going to be a very compelling mystery, and definitely, for me, looked like one of the, could possibly be one of the best films of the summer, and I'm happy to report that Searching really did not let me down at all, to be honest. If anything, it's better than I really could have expected. This is easily one of the most riveting and thrilling films I think I might have seen all decade, and we're just getting into right now, starting off with the cast. Now, here's the thing. With a film of this kind, the acting is a little bit different than acting in a normal film, because most of it, of course, is on a computer. So it has to be executed in a way that is believable, but also in a way that does feel, realistic and is impressive. And I have to say that this acting I was astounded by. I think everyone honestly did a fantastic job. I think everyone really was at the top of their game. But the standout, without a doubt, here is John Cho. I mean, this is absolutely his film. He very much does carry this film. And what I really love about John Cho's acting here is that he did the perfect blend of firing on all cylinders and obviously being a bit frantic about this because he is very erratic and isn't really acting in the most, he isn't really thinking that much when it comes to what really happened with Margot's situation. He is flying off the handle a lot. There's a lot of things he is, like I said, just very sort of, he's just not acting rationally or anything like that. But what I also really loved about him is that he also is a bit restrained. It never goes into a territory that seems cartoony and never goes in a place that doesn't seem real. This feels like a very realistic portrayal of not just grief, because obviously he doesn't want to believe that his daughter's dead, but also the idea of guilt. He feels very guilty for what happened with his daughter, and Cho really displays this very well. You really feel his determination for wanting to track down his daughter, but you feel his sorrow for what really did go down. I think he did a phenomenal job in this film. I know he's not going to get an Oscar nom, but honestly, he is that deserving. And I really do want to see John Cho in more stuff, honestly. I think he's one of the most overlooked actors working today, and this film very much does show it. This is, without a doubt, the best work I have seen from him, and definitely one of the best performances this year, without a doubt. The film, in general, is, it deserves to be seen for Cho's performance alone. But someone else who I don't think is getting enough credit is Debra Messing as Detective Rosemary Vick, who obviously isn't nearly as frantic and emotional of a performance as John Cho, but it still feels very believable. What I really love about Messing's work in this film is that even though she's the one who's trying to get him to stay calm, you do see that she has just as much passion when it comes to this case. She really wants to put it to an end. She really wants to do what she can to try to figure out what's going on. Some of the best scenes are just these two interacting, but of course a lot of their interactions are not directly on screen. It's through FaceTime and things like that, and they do a very good job with getting us to care about this character. She also has a son, similar, that is around Margot's age. They do have a connection there, and I really did love what Messing did in this film. I think she's fantastic here, and I really did love her acting here as well. But now I really do want to talk about the directing here by Aneesh Chaganty, who, to my knowledge, this is his directorial debut. However, he is no stranger to films that deal with, that are entirely done on a computer. In fact, the whole reason this film was made is because Aneesh actually made a Google commercial that was very successful and basically displayed just as much emotion as this did, and this is why this film was made. And you honestly can't tell. This really does feel like a seasoned director. What I really love about his directing is, sure, the whole film does take place on a laptop, but he does not try to make that the main point of the film. He does not try to make that a gimmick in any sense of the word. You know, the reason you should see this film is not just because of the fact that, oh, it's all shot on a laptop, oh, it's all shot on a phone, you know, it's really cool in that way. What he really does very well is finding a way to convey emotion here. This is very much a family drama between father and daughter and the fractured relationship that they've sort of had. And I think his directing there was very well done, but he still doesn't try to get overly sentimental, even though the film is very riveting, which he did a phenomenal job with. I mean, this film is so thrilling in ways that I honestly am so impressed he was able to go. Like, the directions he went in this film are pretty insane, honestly. But again, he was still able to put in some levity, put in some comedy there, so it feels natural. Everything about this feels like just, again, a conversation on a laptop screen. It doesn't feel like a movie at all, and he did a really great job with the directing there. I really loved his directing in this film, but his writing is just superb. I thought his writing was so well done. I really love the script of this film, and like I said, sure, the abduction is front and center. That's a big part of this movie, but the movie's not necessarily about the abduction or, you know, runaway or whatever happened to Margot. Like, sure, that's a big part of it, but that's really the inciting incident. That's really what delves into the main conflict of the film, which what the film is really all about. It's about us, and it's about this father and daughter and their struggle for connection, especially in terms of this loss they've had. You know, David is someone who his wife died quite a few years back, and him and Margot haven't had the greatest relationship since then. Sure, they talk, but they don't seem to talk very emotionally. A lot of their conversations tend to be very casual, and Aneesh does a very good job of diving us into this relationship, because at first glance, it seems like everything's okay with David and Margot, but as the film goes on, you start to realize that there really is a pretty big lack of emotion there. They don't really have that bond anymore that they once did, and I really love diving into their relationship overall. I think it's one of the best parts of this entire film. I think it's very well laid out, and because of how well written those characters are, Margot going missing is that much more effective because you're so invested with the relationship there. I mean, one of their first scenes in the movie is just Margot at a study session and him telling her to do something as simple as to take out the trash. And again, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but what Aneesh does so well is he lays very minute details that don't seem that important, but end up being incredibly important in this film. It's one of those films you kind of have to pay attention to because there's so many details going on, and I really love that he was able to do that. A lot of directors would try to just gloss over that entirely, and they try to tell a very straightforward narrative, but Aneesh does not do that. He really dives deep into, like I said, what's going on between these two and the relationship that they have and the various struggles that they have in life, and I think he did a very good job with that. But I also really love what this film has to say about the generational gap between parents and kids, because that's another big part of this film. The way that David used technology is much different from the way Margot used technology. We see David early on in the film, and technology is a big part of his life. You know, the reason that a lot of this film takes place on a computer is because that's where all of his memories are. Very early on in the film, we see this montage of the family taking basically you know, year by year, every single sort of event that happens in their life. There's a video of Margot playing the piano with her mother. There's a video of them cooking. There's a video of Margot's first day at school. Every single school year, they take pictures together. And again, these don't seem like a big deal, but again, it's one of those things where the whole reason it's on a computer is not for a gimmick. It's because that really is their history. There's entire years of history that's stored onto one hard drive, and they do a very good job with getting into that. But for David, technology overall is for very general things, like for work and for emails, and like I said, for family memories and things like that. That's really what he uses it for. He uses it as a tool to harken back to things and to make lists, while Margot, on the other hand, is much different than that. She uses it much more for emotional connection and to reach out to someone, because we realize that Margot is kind of lonely. She's not nearly as popular as David once thinks she is, and I really loved delving into that, I have to say. I think the film just has a very good understanding of how one generation used technology and how another does, but they use it for completely different reasons, and I really did love the way they got into that overall. And like I said, the connection between Debra Messing and John Cho, I think, is also one of the best parts of the film, because like I said, Debra Messing does also have a kid who is very unpredictable at times, who we don't really hear a lot about, but there's a really great scene very early on in the film where she basically tells him that he's not always going to know what's going on with his daughter, and that that's okay. As a parent, you just need to simply accept that. And the film does get into that there are some things that kids are going to hide from their parents. It's not because that they might have been involved in something rebellious, but because they simply just don't want them to know. And again, the film really gives you a very intimate portrayal of this is who Margot really is. This is David getting to see his daughter in a whole new light, just through these files that she's composed in a computer, or something she said in a chat, or just one Tumblr post that she had. I think they did a very good job with. And like I said, the film also utilizes this for comedy very well. There's a very funny scene early on where he goes to one of Margot's, school buddies and basically asks them, where can I find her stuff? They said she posted on Tumblr, and he doesn't really know how it works. He types in like an E, and again, it's something, again, that's very simple, but it's very important. It's just very well utilized in that way. Again, the film really understood, the difference between how parents view the internet and how kids view the internet, and there are things that neither one will understand, and I really did love getting into that overall. I think that was definitely a very interesting thing, but the mystery overall, like I said, as good as the characters are, it doesn't take away from how great the mystery is, because the mystery here is phenomenal. I really loved getting into the mystery overall. The clues that they set up, again, it does not necessarily go the way you think it's going to. At first, it does seem pretty straightforward of what's actually going on, and once you think you've reached you have a full understanding of what's happening, I'll just tell you right now, you don't. And the places that this film went, I cannot remember a time that a thriller shocked me this much in a while. I honestly had my jaw on the floor multiple times in this movie. There are many twists here that you are definitely not going to see coming, and because of that, it is a film that I do think is going to warrant a lot of multiple viewings, and for some, that can be a little bit annoying because you want everything given to you instantaneously, and that's simply just not the kind of film this is. Searching is a film that will gradually give you information. It will lay things out for you, and it'll put things in the background that blink and you miss it, and they don't seem very important, but then the film will eventually go back to them, and you realize that it's actually one of the focal points of the film. And again, I really love to get into that overall, but I think the film does a very good job with really laying the foundation of what's going on, and then really pulling out the rug and showing you this is what's actually happening, and making it that much more rewarding once it does go down. I really did love everything. The climax in this movie is for sure one of my favorites of the year. I love the way it was done. It took the film in a completely different direction, and for some, it could very much ruin the film, but for me, it really did strengthen the film overall. Like I said, I really can't remember the last time I was this shocked by what was really going on here. I really love the way they were able to do that, and the fact they were able to do this all through like a computer and through technology is really impressive, because there is a huge lack of cinematography here. There are some points where we will see like surveillance footage and things like that, but for the most part, it's all done on a computer. Obviously, it's not really done on a computer. Like, that's all CGI and things that they implemented in, they added in after, but it feels very real. Like the Facebook and things like that, and the Instagram that he goes on, it all feels like real technology. Even really dumb things that her friends say felt very real, because that is exactly how this character would act. That is exactly how a teenager would act in this situation. The film is not trying to sugarcoat anything. The film is not trying to give you a Hollywoodized portrayal. It feels very raw, and this is exactly how they would act. And like I said, David Kim is not the most likable character at points. There are points in this movie where you're like, why can't he just get this through his thick skull? Why can't he understand what's actually going on here? But again, you have to realize that he's a father that not only is he very worried, but he is very much in deep grief. There are quite a few things that he has repressed, and I think they do a very good job with diving into that character and this and how he operates and how he really acts in the situation, and can he really get a hold on what's actually going on, and is there actually going to be an answer? I was wondering if the film was actually going to give us a definitive answer, which they eventually do, but for a while I was really wondering, is the whole point in this film is that he's searching for nothing? Is that really what's going on? And again, there's a lot of interesting things that this film does dive into, and that's just one of many. Also, I have to say, I think the film also did a very good job with getting us invested in this family overall. The opening scene of this film is probably one of the most emotionally effective opening scenes I can recall in recent memory, and I think a lot of people are probably going to compare it to Up. And yeah, it is definitely very similar. It's kind of like a live action, realistic version of what really did go down in Up. It's a lot longer, there's a lot more years that go by and things like that. I mean, Up was, from childhood to when they were older, so there's not that much time that passes, but we do get into a lot of what the family went through, their hardships, some of the best times in their lives, some of the worst times in their lives, and that whole sequence in general alone is enough of a reason to view this film. I think it's one of the best opening sequences in the entire year. I don't want to spoil where it ends up going, but it was it was incredibly emotional. It was very well handled, and I think, like I said, it's one of the most well put together opening scenes that I have seen in recent memory. I loved everything about it. I will say, for some people, the score can be an issue. It is my one nitpick with the film, because the film does feel very real, and then they will play music just to remind you that you're watching a movie. And no, it's not from David's laptop. That only happened a couple times. A lot of the time, the music is a legit score, which I did enjoy. I'm not going to say that I didn't, because I do think the score did a good job of heightening the tension, but does it take away from some of the, realistic aspects that the film is trying to go for? For some, yes, but for me, not really. I think the film was riveting enough where that's not really that big of an issue for me. And the editing, I think this film was extremely well paced. I mean, again, there's so many things where you think you know where it's going, and it's not. The 5-day span feels like a long time, and the film wants it to feel like a long time, because for David, this does feel like a long time. I mean, 5 days without knowing what his daughter is doing. And keep in mind, like, this is someone who he checked in with frequently, and they had a very good relationship in that way. So for him to have no idea what she's really doing, and just aimlessly looking for her and not really knowing the hows and the whys of what really went down, is just really incredible. And the way that they handle it, I just really did love the pacing to this film. Sometimes it's not always on a laptop screen. They do take a few liberties with, like, news footage and things like that, but I feel like you really had to use this news footage, and you had to use certain things that we do end up seeing, because I don't think this film would have worked if if you did just have it on one laptop, because it's not always there, but you never really do see them in real life. Like, it always is on some sort of screen, and I really did like the way they did that overall. I thought it was very well handled. And while I really would love to dive deep into spoilers, I think this is just a film that it's better to go into not really knowing a lot about. There were a lot of things that I definitely did not see coming, and I'm hoping that when you view this film, it's just as surprising and riveting as it was for me, because this truly is one of the best thrillers I think I've seen this decade. Sure, it does have the whole computer thing, but again, it's not a gimmick. It's because it is that emotional thing for the family. It's where all of their memories lie. It's where all of their deepest desires and their deepest secrets really are is on this one computer, and I think they did a very good job with conveying that. John Cho gives a career best performance. It's very thrilling, but it also is very entertaining too. You really do get invested in that family dynamic. The father-daughter relationship is rock solid. It feels real. You really are invested in that, and the mystery itself is very compelling and definitely does not go the way you think it's going to go. I can understand if some people do complain about some plot holes here and there, because there's always going to be plot holes, but it's a film that really does demand a rewatch. I really do want to rewatch this film at some point and then give you maybe a further analysis of why I really did love it, but either way, I absolutely love this film. I really can't find one flaw. Like, I really thought about it, and sure, that music, can be a bit of a nitpick, but it really does not hinder this film's quality for me. It really is not a reflection on my thoughts of this film overall. When I think of this film, I feel how intense, how into the mystery I was, how much the climax really did affect me, how riveting the film really was overall, how emotional I really did get. I cried several times in this movie, in the beginning, a couple times towards the end, and you probably will too. It's very relatable in that sense too. I think it's a film that a lot of people are going to relate to. Obviously not the daughter missing part, but the whole thing with the connection is something that I think we can all really relate to, and I think this film does a very good job with presenting that. This is for sure one of the best films of the entire year. I definitely was expecting to enjoy this film, but I did not expect to love it nearly as much as I did. I certainly did not expect to call it one of the best films of the decade, but that is exactly what this film is. There really is no better way of summing it up than just saying that Searching truly is as good as everyone has been saying, and I'm just going to go ahead and give it the grade that it rightfully does deserve, which is a very well-deserving A+. Like I said, for some, this film could be very derivative, but I think they really did a great job with making a film that happened to take place on a computer, but gave you that emotion and gave you that really great family drama that just happens to be a little bit different from the rest, and a really riveting thriller that I absolutely encourage all of you to see. Like, this is the last must-see film of the summer, and a hell of a way to end it as well. But that's really it for this review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please go see this movie if you haven't. It is definitely of the highest recommendation for sure. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.